been married for 15 years, and we have been presenting Engaged Encounter weekends, Catholic Engaged Encounter weekends, here in South Dakota for almost 13 years. In that time, we've seen hundreds and hundreds of couples, and one of the things that we're asked time and time again is, how do you keep the romance alive? Well, we're here to tell you that the romance is alive and well in our family, and we'd like to tell you a little bit about it today.
When you think of romance, I start back to when we were first engaged, and it just brings a smile to my face whenever I think about it. Bart would send me flowers to my classroom when I was teaching, or he would call me and I just couldn't wait to hear the sound of his voice. Or when he would come over to my place for supper, I'd make sure the house was clean and there was the perfect food to make and all that other stuff. It was, all I wanted to do was do things for Bart.
You know, I remember back to those days. It was an exciting time. Barbara was a school teacher, and I would go and visit her classroom, and I just loved putting up bulletin boards and correcting papers, and just anything I could do to be in the same room with her was just wonderful, and I just loved it. But over the course of time, you come to realize that in marriage, not every day is like that. You don't always feel that way, and that's because in marriage, love is a decision. It's something that you choose to do. It's not a noun, it's a verb, and we choose to do that. Now, there are days when that comes very easy, and there are days when it doesn't come so easy. But when you choose to make that decision every day, it just becomes a way of life, and before you know it, that's how you choose. That's how you make your marriage every day. Now, there are times when it's very smooth, very easy, and there are other days when it's big, and you have to look at each other, and you need the graces that the sacrament brings. And that's the time, I think, when we look at each other and we say, we need to choose this today.
When you choose to love, you kind of go past what the world tells us about marriage and about love. The world tells us that, I'll give some as long as I get something in return. This goes so much farther beyond it. This is God's plan for marriage. God's plans for marriage is for me to mirror the image or the love that He gave to the church, where He gave 100%. And so as a married couple, we are each called to give 100% to this marriage to make it work. And it is so amazing when you do that. And it just takes you to a place that you didn't think you could go. And it really, if each person was giving 100% to the success of your marriage, how can it fail? I mean, really, how could it fail? To do that, make that decision to love, you have to have that foundation there. And that comes from the daily things like doing the dishes or doing the laundry, shoveling the driveway, those little things. And it's not, I did this, now you need to do that. It's, this is what I did for you because I love you. And that's the only reason you do it. And then that just leads to other things like in the winter, I hate South Dakota winters. I don't like the cold. Bart so willingly goes out and he fills my car up with gas when it's low. And it's not because he loves South Dakota winters. It's because he does it for me, just out of love.
We have two kids. We have a 12-year-old daughter and a 9-year-old son. And, with the kids' schedules, I have no idea what's going on at the time. I really don't. But Barbara is a rock in that area. Sometimes she's telling me, as we're walking out the door, where we're going. And managing that is what she does to really make that daily decision to love and to make me feel like it's important to her.
When you do those little things for each other, then the big things, when you have to make those big decisions to love, it makes it almost second nature. My dad was in the hospital at neuroacute for about a month here in town. There was a lot of nights of me going to the hospital and being with him and my mom. And Bart, just without even thinking, he just made sure he got the kids. He made sure the homework was done. They got supper. They were in bed. And I never had to feel guilty or worry about it. And then when Dad got transferred to the Mayo Clinic, I would go and spend days out there. And again, it was just his kindness and his love. He just did it willingly without even thinking twice. And it was such a grace for me to have that when I was out in Rochester.
About 5 years ago, I decided to go back to college. And, you know, when you have 2 little kids, that's not a decision that you make by yourself. It affected our entire family. And it's not just a short-term deal. I mean, when you're going back for 1.5 years, 2 years, that's a lot of work. And every day Barbara made that decision to love. She did it when she took the kids to the activities, when she distracted them so I could study, and when she just was there for me. And sometimes they would videotape things that I wasn't at so that we could watch them later as a family. And that's the kind of daily decision to love that made going back to college possible. And when I graduated, I remember looking out into the audience, and there they were. And they were as much a part of it as I was. And that's those kind of big things that happen in our lives, that change our lives. And that couldn't happen without that love in the marriage. And there's nothing more romantic than making that decision.
And as you're talking about that, I thought about the kids a little bit too.
Sure.
When you as a couple make that decision to love, you're teaching your children to make that decision to love. Mm-hmm. So when Rachel had the Christmas program on the night that Bart had class, there was no guilt trip for Dad. Mom just had the video camera, and we made popcorn so that when Dad could watch it, we could all watch it together.
Right.
And I think they made a decision to love when they did things like that, or when they were praying for him while he was at school and stuff like that. That was their chance to do that, and I think that then will strengthen them as a person as well when they learn from what we do. It's our hope, I would say. I think one of the most incredible things for me is to know that every day Bart chooses to love me. Not because of what I do, not because of what I say. He just chooses to love me. And that's the most incredible feeling that I think I can ever hope for. And that's just our hope for any couples that we work with, is that they know that decision to love. They know the plan that God has for marriage, and that they can experience that as well.